Every company is going to have a unique balance sheet, and each balance sheet will have a different blend of debt and equity. There'll be different blends. Now, each tranche of capital is going to have a different cost attached to it. And to work out the company's overall cost of capital, a computation has to be performed that should reflect the weighted average cost of capital. So let's do an example. Imagine Dangote Limited has the following forms of long-term capital in its balance sheet. There's equity of 600,000 MAC, and there's preference shares equivalent to 100,000 MAC. There's also debt of 300,000 MAC. That's a total capital base of 1 million MAC. So firstly, what we need to do is we need to weight the capital. Now, weighting simply means we have to say for each type of capital that we've observed, what proportion is it of the overall capital base? And it's a pretty simple calculation. So to weight the equity, you'd simply take the total amount of equity, 600,000 MAC, and divide it by the total capital base of 1 million MAC. That gives it a weighting of 0.6. Similarly, for the preference shares, we would take the total preference share amount of 100,000 MAC and divide it by the total capital base of 1 million MAC. That gives us a weighting for preference shares of 0.1. Finally, for the debt, we'll take the total debt of 300,000 MAC divided by the total capital base of 1 million, and that gives us a weighting of 0.3. If you add up your weightings, they should always add up to 1. If they don't, you've made a mistake somewhere. The next step now is to apply those weightings to the cost of capital of each capital tranche. Now, in this example, I have given you the cost of each capital type. I've said the equity costs us 25%, the preference shares cost us 16%, and the debt costs us 12%. Now, if you multiply the cost of capital for each tranche by its weighting, you're going to give a contribution. So the equity will be 25% multiplied by a 0.6% weighting, resulting in a contribution of 15%. The preference shares will be 16% multiplied by 0.10 weighting, resulting in a contribution of 1.6%. And the debt will be 12% multiplied by 0.3 weighting, resulting in a contribution of 3.6%. If you add all the contributions up, we have calculated that Dangote Limited has a weighted average cost of capital of 20.2%. Now, most companies will use this weighted average cost of capital as the basis of the discount rate they apply to ventures or projects they are considering doing. They will argue that the weighted average cost of capital is the minimum discount rate that can be applied in evaluating a project. Anything less than this weighted average cost of capital means the project does not generate sufficient cash flows or returns to cover the firm's cost of capital if it is undertaken. So if you applied a discount rate less than the weighted average cost of capital that you've calculated, you would in effect be destroying value for that company. So the WACC, the weighted average cost of capital that a company works out for itself, is the minimum discount rate that can be applied to evaluate a project.